Cinemassacre's Monster Madness.
The Mummy's Curse. This is the final film in the Karras Mummy series, and you can see why, because the series completely ran out of steam. It opens in the same location where Karras and Ananka sank in the swamp at the end of the last film, except now the swamp is located in Louisiana. It's not uncommon for these films to ignore continuity, and if it helps change things up and keep it fresh, then so be it.
Long ago there was a mummy, like you say, and he take a girl in the swamp. But that was 25 years past.
Wait a minute, this takes place 25 years after The Mummy's Tomb and The Mummy's Ghost? Which both took place 30 years after The Mummy's Hand, which would mean The Mummy's Curse takes place in 1995. Who would ever imagine they set this movie in a decade where the world was being littered with Pogs and free AOL discs? When workers begin paving over the swamp, the people of the town are getting paranoid that the mummy's going to come back, but others dismiss it as superstition. Then a murder takes place and the mummy's shape can be found in the hardened swamp.
The devil's on the loose and he's dancing with the mummy.
That's this movie's catchphrase.
The mummy's on the loose and he's dancing with the devil.
Why'd he switch it around? Oh, whatever. Another priest, along with a sidekick, are now in control of the mummy. Once again, we're given a lot of exposition to get new audiences up to speed, and the whole flashback from the first two Mummy films is shown again unabridged. Once again, the goal for them is to bring Karras and Ananka back to Egypt. The makeup on Karras is cheaper this time around. Jack Pierce made a mask because it took less time to put on and to give poor Lon Chaney a break. To this day, the mask is being preserved by longtime collector Bob Burns and is the last surviving piece of Jack Pierce's work in existence. Next, Ananka rises from the swamp. It's a real creepy sequence. It takes its time, savoring every ghastly moment. A walk in the water washes off the mud and reverts her back into a young woman. Next, Karras comes after her. Rather than embracing her old Egyptian lover, she runs. And basically what happens for the next 25 minutes is a slow chase scene, with Karras killing anyone who stands in his way. Finally, he catches her, carries her back to the hideout, which is an old monastery. The priest is happy until the servant brings an outsider in, which betrays his trust.
Your tongue shall be torn from your mouth.
They argue, the servant stabs his master. The other characters show up, a knife fight breaks out, and everything is wrapped up in the last 5 minutes, in true Universal fashion. After Karras twice survived being burned to a crisp, it's falling stones which finally do him in. As for Ananka, she reverts back to an ancient mummy. This is a stale and unimaginative finale to the Karras Mummy series, but there are some good highlights, like all the mummy murder scenes and Ananka rising in the swamp. I also like the swamp setting, because it's nice to see something different. Roughly 10 years later, Universal resurrected the mummy again in this comedy, Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, but this time the mummy's named Clarice.
Where will we find the mummy?
Don't worry, the mummy will find you.
Then, in 1959, Hammer remade The Mummy in color with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in the role of Karras. This is by far the best Mummy movie since the 1932 original. I highly recommend it. Hammer followed it up with The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, The Mummy's Shroud, and Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. These ones, not so much. Then, of course, as we approached the new millennium, Universal relaunched the franchise as a CG-infested action-adventure series. The Mummy Returns, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, and the spin-off The Scorpion King. These movies are a product of their time just as much as the old ones are. They're cheesy in their own way, but entertaining. We have a whole new week coming up, and that's going to be dedicated to another classic horror series, so stay tuned.